Okay, so I don't intend to make this video very long, but I want to talk about a topical issue that is connected with the press. Today, I bought a historic newspaper. In fact, I got a text from one of my parents to remind me that this was the last ever print edition of The Independent. You see there they have as the headline Stop Press, read all about it and enjoy 4 souvenir supplements in this, our final printed edition, 1986 to 2016. Now, ever since the AI was released in 2010, I've been buying the Independent a lot less. A, because it's more expensive, and B, because it's essentially the same paper, but like I say, more expensive, more comprehensive. So there wouldn't be much point in me buying both, but I have occasionally bought the Independent. And when I began my newspaper collection about 10 years ago, this was the paper I turned to as what I viewed as a centrist, sort of level headed newspaper. Um, And I just want to talk a bit about this issue of the fact that it's now going online, and this is a trend that is going to be seen by many newspapers. Um, Notwithstanding the release of New Day as a print edition, it's quite clear that all the national dailies in the United Kingdom have had a circulation that have greatly dropped. Now, when I saw that tabloid circulation was down, I was relieved by that. I thought, great, because I'm not a fan of tabloid newspapers, that goes without saying. I have contempt for them, to be quite honest. But actually, it's a trend that goes across the board because the circulation of broadsheets has also went down. Um, there's a few practical reasons this may be the case. I guess it just goes in line with the fact so much of the world is online nowadays. You get so-called ebooks and so on. They have a briefing section here. They say approximately 9,700 trees will be saved from going digital only. And in quotations, the technology that has enabled us to establish ourselves has, 30 years later, rendered the print edition unviable. Um, that's Andreas Whittam Smith. 69,076,511 record for monthly unique browsers on independent.co.uk. Um, and there's a few other aspects to this. Um, what I would like to say is that I don't know the full arguments in and out of why newspapers are gradually going online, but for me personally, I think it's an unfortunate thing, and this is why. To me, a book is this. To me, a newspaper is this. I simply cannot feel the same way about online editions. Now, the argument about the environmental aspect is an important one, but I'm not quite sure how that figures because, as far as I understand it, this is recycled paper. And if the issue is about an environmental concept, surely if you have the ratio of replanting trees higher than the number of trees that are felled to produce newspapers, then it is something that is sustainable. Um, I'm not going to comment in great detail about this because, to be honest, I don't know all the issues. I don't know why it's went online. But I want to know the perspective of other people who may read newspapers, or if you read online editions, how do you find that? Um, for me, it's just not the same thing. I can't imagine a situation. The only way I will start reading online is if there really is no other choice and all the national dailies eventually go online. I think it would be a great pity, but it actually makes my collection all the more important. Just show you. That is 2015, 2014, and I've got many other collections around my room and in all parts of my house. Altogether, and this is a pure estimate, but 3,500 newspapers. Might be a little bit less, might be a bit more, but somewhere in the region of 3,500 newspapers accumulated over around 10 years. I started collecting newspaper clippings from 2004 onwards. Then I realised, well, what's the point of just clipping newspapers? I may as well just collect the whole newspaper. Because I realised if I found an interesting article on one side of the page, I would have to cut through an interesting article on the other side of the page. So in the end, actually, I started off my collection. You can see those folders, and they're full of clippings from actually 1999 to 2004, I believe, 2006. 2006 onwards, I started collecting full newspapers. It is a hobby, a pastime I'm going to need to slow down because I'm running out of space. I may, and this may be a brash claim, but I may have the largest private collection, certainly in Sunderland, possibly in Tyne and Wear. Um, at a push, I'd like to say in northeast England. And if I continue doing this, I may well have the largest private individual collection in the United Kingdom. Um, I really don't know about that, but unless there really isn't any way to know unless I get out and contact other collectors. It is what I collect basically. I collect other things. I collect beer bottles, as you can see. I'm not a heavy drinker actually. I just find the labels interesting. Um, I collect other things. I'm a bibliophile. I collect books. I collect other things. But anyway, back to the newspapers. To me, it's just not the same thing. I understand there are economic arguments, and I understand editors have to understand the business side of it. But to me, it's this is a sad day. Um, Obviously, there's still other newspapers that have a print edition, but it's just not the same thing to me. And I can never imagine. I mean, I do look at articles online, the ones that are free, obviously, but it just will never be the same because for me, look at a newspaper. Say, for example, I look at a newspaper that's 10 years old. You know it's a 10-year-old newspaper. If you look at an article online that's 10 years old, well, that's another thing. Old articles aren't readily available in the way that you could just hold on to a newspaper years later and look at it. What I do sometimes is on the anniversary of a big event, it could be the anniversary of, for example, the Indian Ocean tsunami or a particular general election. I'll look back on that and think, yeah, this is how this was reported at that time. It's like literally holding history in your hand. Looking at that online just is not the same thing. So, yeah, to me, it's a slightly sad occasion. Obviously, this is just one newspaper, but probably all the others would um, follow suit, I should say. Let me know your thoughts. If you are a newspaper reader, do you think this is a good thing? Do you think it is? And I'm not talking here about any specific newspaper. I'm talking about the industry in general because this is a trend, and for me, it's unfortunate. But it also makes my collection all the more important, I guess. Um, I remember for one of my birthdays, my parents very kindly ordered an edition from the 2nd of September 1985. They couldn't get the 1st of September, which is the day I was born, but they got the day afterwards. And that's, seeing that paper exactly as it was. And it's not a reprint, it's the exact newspaper from the time. I find it fascinating. So let me know your thoughts about newspapers, about reprints, about the fact that it's all going online, and may as well talk about books as well. So it's an open question for media as a general concept going online. Don't get me wrong, I think the internet is wonderful. I think technology can be applied for a great thing, but I do sometimes have apprehension that the whole world, every single aspect of our lives is being put online, and I do have reservations about that. Because I think it takes away a certain human connection. It's hard to explain. I think that by putting every single thing online, I mean, it's ultimately going to have some serious questions about killing human communication. If every single aspect of our lives is digitalized, people who love technology will say, well, they have a sort of unblinding or on a sort of unyielding praise. Like, everything goes. It's all good. It's all good. And I'm kind of thinking, well, I see both sides. I can see the good side, but we have to have some things that remind us of the human world. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a situation 50 years from now where our whole lives will be digitalized. Everything. People will be getting married online, and I really do have reservations about that. So let me know your thoughts.